first discovered the program in a state of panic. I experienced PIED. I wasn't really aware that the condition that I was experiencing was related to overconsumption of pornography. Ultimately, nothing's changing if you're not putting in the work. You can play it cool, but you just can't do it alone. It takes a community to do it.
What's going on, Reboot team? Chris here with yet another testimonial from a brother coming to us from our exclusive Reboot Intensive program, an absolute OG, and I'm really excited to have him share his insight, his experience, his perspective, and his reboot journey up to this point. I'm here with AJ, man. How you doing?
I'm wonderful, Chris. How are you? Well, I've already asked how you're doing.
We
That's just
literally-
I feel like that's just an automatic response
yeah.
whenever people say hey to me. But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm glad we can make the time. And like I said, man, you're certainly, no rookie by any stretch. You've certainly been around for a minute, and I want to hear all about that journey. But really, before we kind of dive into any specific details, I kind of want to know, just starting off, how did you first begin your reboot journey? Namely, how did you first discover the program to begin with?
I first discovered the program in a state of panic, really. I experienced PIED, several years ago when I was in pharmacy school, and I looked into what it actually was. I didn't know it at the time, and I wasn't really aware that the condition that I was experiencing was related to, overconsumption of pornography or pornographic material. And going down that research rabbit hole, I kind of stumbled upon Porn Reboot. It was one of JK's videos on YouTube, one of his earlier videos. He was talking in his car. The video quality at the time was was not the greatest, but he was dropping some dimes and stuff that I was experiencing, and stuff that I could relate to at the time. And he had a few videos posted, so I started watching those videos, and I started listening to podcasts. After that, he would always drop his link to the Spotify. It's Porn Reboot podcast on Spotify, and I gave those a listen, and then I basically reached out to, I believe it was Han, the reboot strategist, and it just kind of went from there. I started in the implementation group, and then I thought that I could white knuckle it, and I got out of the implementation group, and then found my way right back to the Porn Reboot group and got into the intensive, and the rest is history.
And here we are, man.
Yeah,
So many questions I have just based on that journey alone. But
yeah.
let's start with your time when you first joined the program, when you first joined our implementation program, which is one of our other programs for brothers who are, looking for a community and are also struggling with a compulsive behavior. Tell me a little bit about, just starting out in the program, just in the early days of your reboot, and kind of like go back in time in your mind, like what was going on around then?
Oh man, I knew that I was in pain, but like my state of mind going into it was obviously not the one that I have now. And as far as what it means to actually reboot, or to be in that process, or beginning that process of rebooting. For example, going into it, I thought that pornography was the problem, and just counting days as far as porn free days, is what I called it back then. I didn't really look at quitting porn as kind of like a holistic thing, things, outside of, my pornography usage. I wasn't really aware that there are things going on outside of, my consumption of pornography that play a part in me actually looking at the material, for example. But yeah, I guess to go back to your question, I didn't really know what I was really getting into. I had no idea what I was doing. I just know that out this group, JK, it sounded like he knew what he's talking about. Everything that he was saying spoke to me, and it just kind of like I just kind of went for it. No idea what to expect. I just wanted to, really get rid of this behavior. It was of detriment. It wasn't really taking me anywhere. It created more problems than it did solutions. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it absolutely does. I appreciate you just, really illustrating the picture. And first of all, you're preaching to the choir when it comes to taking that leap of faith It's like I don't
Yeah.
know where this can lead me, but all I know is that I'm hurting, and all I know is I need help. And I also know
Yes.
that, like you said earlier, like white knuckling it and trying to do things, leaning on my own understanding, if you will, at least within the world of this sect of compulsive behaviors, I can't do it on my own. And I totally know what that's like. And I'm curious, what have been some of the tools that you've picked up along the way in your, journey and self-discovery, awareness, and treating yourself with more compassion, being more healthy? Like, what have been some of the tools you've learned about?
Oh yeah, like since being in the intensive, I've learned so many things. They're, being in the group, they're tools that are introduced to you that help you kind of change your frame of mind around what it means to be porn free or to be rebooted. I know that there's stages of rebooting that's there, and that's something that you'll be introduced to once you're in the group. But yeah, I have accountability partners that I check in with every day. I just recently made a list of non-negotiables, and checking in with my accountability partners is one of those non-negotiables. It's something that I emphatically do every day, no matter what it is. It keeps me anchored. It gives me an automatic win for the day. And that's another thing too, counting my wins, being cognizant of my emotions. There's a spatial clarity exercise that I just did that, Coach Milan, went over with us last Friday. And I know you were on that call, Chris. And a lot of this stuff kind of sounds woo-woo. When you actually do it and you're actually in it and when you're putting in the work, it helps a lot. It changes your perspective on how you view yourself and how you view people as well, too. The Porn Reboot group takes a holistic approach to ending, this bad behavior, staying away from porn, but it's every facet of your life. We call it, reboot capital. And I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but I feel like I'm rambling. I tend to do that sometimes, but
You're killing it.
yeah. So yeah, it's a holistic approach to stopping this bad behavior, and I really love the program for that, for introducing me to all these tools and ideas around quitting pornography consumption.
That's sick, man. I love that. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Like, there's so many nuggets that you just dropped, and just no, I honestly like just a lot of encouragement. But okay, let's start here. The first big thing, and for the record, it took me a while to kind of like get hip to as well. The concept of counting your wins, which for a guy like me and for many people that find themselves in, this type of hole of behaviors, it can be really, really kind of foreign, Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's just when you keep track, it's so easy for us to just dwell on the negatives. I know for me, I can be a bit hard on myself, and I know in the past, I've said some mean things to myself. Our subconscious keeps track of that. And it just creates this kind of turmoil within us. But when we're able to do something, even if it's the smallest thing, make that a win and keep track of that and say that you were able to do that thing, it means so much. Like yourself like thanks you for it. It promotes self-trust, and it's a way of being easy on yourself when it's so easy to be hard on yourself. It seems so simple, but it's with everything that's going on, and it's hard to kind of forget the simple things. And yeah, it's just one way of just being nice to yourself and being easy, on yourself, and to just keep pushing forward. If that makes sense.
Make complete sense. I love that. No, I appreciate you speaking on that. Count your wins. It seems so simple, but like once you do it, you realize the importance of it.
Yeah.
And one other thing that you had mentioned was shout out to Coach Milan. I'm curious, overall in your experience, what's been your, experience overall with the coaching calls?
Oh man, it's been awesome. I'm just learning things that it's I wouldn't say learning, well, I would say learning things, but things are being presented to me in kind of a unique way. Like, Coach Milan is awesome, Dr. Rankin, his calls are really awesome as well. These calls just kind of give you a different perspective on tackling things, on tackling certain issues that, we all have as struggling porn addicts or people who have had their share of addiction or, trying to quit this behavior. These calls, sorry, words are escaping me. There are ways of getting you to like I said, look at different things as far as what's challenging you or what's challenging everybody in the group.
No, I think that's really good. And again, lots that I can relate to as well. And a shout out to
Mhm.
all of our coaches for helping to facilitate that process. One other thing that you had mentioned, you had shouted out your accountability partners. Man, especially when first starting out, just like having people to confide in and trade notes with was just like, didn't know I needed that. I can certainly go
Oh
off
yeah.
and how it made me feel and how it helped my reboot, but I'm curious, like, how has having accountability partners from the program aided you in your reboot?
Oh man, it's been tremendous. Recently I've just been, posting in my AP group, daily, and it's just like, I kind of combine, like my feelings exercise, which is one of the tools that you'll learn to use, once you're in the group. In addition to, checking in with my accountability partners. So I kind of do like a two-in-one type of thing daily. And it's just like, my accountability partners have called me out on this, whenever I've had like a slip or a relapse. They'll see like this pattern of my emotions, like, leading up to a relapse or a slip if I do have one, or like in the early stages, even starting to get to that kind of danger zone. And it's kind of like they're kind of like a mirror for me that tells me like, oh, AJ, you probably don't need to do this or do that. Like, you said your emotions were like this a couple days ago. We've noticed this pattern before with your last slip. And long story short, your accountability partners are there not only to call you out, but they're kind of like your reflection, in a sense. It takes two to tango. You can't overcome this behavior alone, and your accountability partners are there to help you out and to also for you to help them out. It's a beautiful dance, I would say. And we're all being a team, and we're both taking that destination, we're all taking that ride there, but we're helping each other, and we're kind of like feeding off of each other. Recently I just had a big emotional relapse. My APs, like, we all hopped on a call and they really pulled me out of it. In that moment I felt so grateful, to be in a group of really awesome guys that really honestly care for me and my well-being. Yeah, that was a very emotional phone call. My accountability partners are awesome.
Amazing. That's really, really awesome, man. And, there's a question that I like to ask on a call like this, and it's essentially all that you've experienced, all that you've learned, all that you've done has led you up to where you're at now, right? If you could have the opportunity to have a one-on-one with somebody who's just like kind of on the fence as far as, what to do next, someone who, underneath like a cool and calm demeanor are kind of struggling with an out of control behavior and in reality just suffering in silence in the way that you and I know about very well. Yeah, like having learned what you've learned, having experienced what you've experienced so far, is there anything that you would want to perhaps share with that person?
You can play it cool for as long as you like. And you can think, and you can have this notion that, eventually, you'll be able to get over this out of control behavior that you think that you would, at some point in time, eventually you'll have the life you want. But, ultimately nothing's changing if you're not putting in the work. What's really stopping you from making that first step? I know the unknown can be a bit, scary, but I mean, really, what do you have to lose? I mean, you have everything to gain. It's only up from here, just take that first step and that leap of faith, because whatever you're doing now isn't working, clearly, because you're your inner world is in turmoil and you don't really know where to go. And the only reason why I know that is because I was there. I know all too well the feeling. So I would look at it as investing in yourself, investing in your future, and you never know. You can't do it alone. And I learned that the hard way. You just can't. You know, you can play it cool, but you just can't do it alone. It really takes a community to do it because isolation is your worst enemy. It is.
Yeah, I mean,
Advocate for yourself.
yeah, dude, you preach to the choir as well on that one. So, sort of a follow-up question to that. You sort of alluded to this, but would you in turn to this person recommend this program?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I don't know of any other program that takes quitting pornography or controlling this out of control behavior from a holistic approach. This program gives you all of the tools that you need in order to succeed. A lot of it falls on you. You know, the tools are there. And this program gives you all the tools that you need. So it's, once you're in, you're going to get all of it, but ultimately it's going to rest on you. It's an investment in yourself. Think of it that way, in your future. Yeah, to answer your question, absolutely, definitely. It took me getting out of the implementation group, like I said before, and then ultimately getting back into the intensive. Porn Reboot is going to be there. You can fight it all you want to, but it's going to be there.
I've been in that pair of shoes myself, but I'm proud of the insight that you've gained through experience because it didn't just come out of nowhere. You had to live through it and experience it for yourself in order to see this through, I'm really, really proud of you, excited for what's to come. And sincerely, I really appreciate your time and thank you for hopping on and sharing your experience, man.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. Appreciate JK and Porn Reboot, like the all my brothers in the group. Shout out to y'all.